Look, arrogance. You think you're better than us? You got the right to kill us? Huh? We've got the power of life and death now! You're going to use it!
What the hell? Stay here. I'll go check it out.
I'm in. Main entrance is clear.
Agent, you need to cut off the primary escape route. Take out the boats that got docked southwest of your position.
I'll keep an eye on the main entrance and make sure he doesn't double back.
What's up, agents? How y'all doing? Hope everybody's hanging in there, being as safe as you guys need to be. So we're into year 6 now, and a lot of things have changed. Just the other day, I was looking at, it happened to be tech support, which used to be 25% skill damage on a skill kill for 20 seconds. But I was looking at it, it says 25 seconds. I was like, wait, it used to be 20, went back, checked, it's true. So a little stealth buff there. Realizing that change happened, I thought, you know what? Now is a good time for me to go back and go through all of the talents that are dedicated to skills and how they slot in and how they stack up. Are they exceptional? Are they good? Are they situational? Or are they crap? All right, guys, so what I want to do today is, given the fact that there's been some stealth changes and stuff, I want to go through all of the talents, whether they're the weapon talents, chest talents, backpack talents, or the standalone exotics we have, like the Waveform, the Vial, things like that. I want to go through, see where they're at, see if there's been any changes. More importantly, I want to kind of rank them, let you guys know what I think about them, and the few pros and cons that I see, if any, to any one of these given talents. All right, if you guys find this entertaining, learn something new, smash that like button, would be greatly appreciated. Hopefully by the end of this, I will have earned your guys' subscriptions. Best thing you can do to help my channel is to share this video. And do me a favor, anything you guys would do different or anything you guys want to see coming up here in the future, leave a comment down below. All right, without further ado, let's jump into the talents and how I rank them. All right, guys, so first of all, we're going to start out, I think I want to go from the lowest to highest tier for each of these. So I thought about alphabetical order, but I think I want to start with the worst, and with what I think are the best. A couple of times, you know, there will be things that are basically equivalent, so in that case, it is what it is. So let's start out with the weapon talents. So first of all, I want to start out with Future Perfect. What Future Perfect does is, upon kill with this weapon, it will give you 1 extra skill tier for 15 seconds, or in the case of the Mechanimal, 19 seconds with the perfected form. This stacks up to 3 times, so theoretically, if you were at skill tier 3, you could achieve after 3 kills skill tier 6, and if you were at skill tier 4 or above, after 3 or less kills, you can overcharge. So this is a cool way of getting overcharged through your weapons. The downside about it is I just feel like there are better ways. You can get just more bang for your buck using other talents. The other thing I want to mention is with the Mechanimal, the Perfect, I think it's Future Perfection, I think it's called. But anyway, the Perfect skill, the one thing it doesn't do is, so every time you get a kill with it, it gives you that +1 skill tier for 19 seconds, but the overcharge is still only 15 seconds. So it literally makes it no better for anybody who's using it for overcharge. So why not make the Mechanimal also have the overcharge time 19 seconds. That might actually get it some gameplay. That sets it above basically any other weapon that you could put Future Perfect on. Otherwise, why not just run my favorite weapon of choice and just run regular Future Perfect if I'm going to run that skill. Alright, next I want to talk about 3 talents that are situational but very powerful. The first one is Vindictive. This, if you kill a status affected enemy, you will give your team, anybody that's within 20 meters of that enemy, 15% crit hit chance and 15% crit hit damage. This will last for 20 seconds. The couple of caveats. So first of all, a lot of the weapon DPS guys are already basically maxed out on crit hit chance, so they may get limited benefit out of that. However, everybody always likes additional critical hit damage. If you're going to go this route, I would recommend running the Grudge SMG for the perfect Vindictive, which will net you 18% crit hit chance and 18% crit hit damage. Just a better buff overall. The other main thing to note is that you have to have an enemy who has a status effect on them, and you have to get the kill to proc that benefit for your team. And if you're in a team and somebody else gets the kill, unfortunately you will not proc that buff. Alright, the next situational one is Reformation. Standard Reformation, on a headshot, you will net yourself 30% repair skill for 15 seconds. If you want to buff that up, you can use the Marksman Rifle, the Designated Hitter. This will net you 40% repair skill for those 15 seconds on a headshot. This is a good buff. The downside to this buff is if you proc Reformation and then you swap weapons, that buff will go away. I would prefer if they would change it so when you proc Reformation, you can immediately swap over to another weapon. You don't have to reload or anything. You keep Reformation for the full duration. You can be doing DPS with another weapon that maybe has a damage talent. And then right as Reformation ends, you could swap back over to your other weapon, get another headshot, and reproc it for your team. That would allow a healer to be much more beneficial, especially if we take into consideration something like Future Perfect. So maybe they could proc Reformation, they're doing some damage, an enemy's weak, they get that kill, bam, overcharge. Now their healing is kicked up that much more, then they could swap back over and reproc Reformation. Just some food for thought with it. It is a solid perk, it is a powerful perk, but it's most likely underused, probably because of that. Now the last of the situational weapon talents, but one that is extremely powerful, and you guys have seen in any of my status effect builds, Perpetuation. Perpetuation on getting a headshot, the cool thing about it, as long as you don't swap weapons, you can leave battle and it will remain. You will keep Perpetuation procced until you either apply a status effect or you swap weapons. That being said, upon getting that headshot, your next applied status effect will get 50% bonus status effects damage, as well as 50% additional duration. Once you proc Perpetuation, you can swap weapons. You will see the cooldown, and it will let you know when you're free to swap back over and reproc Perpetuation once again. Now, there is the Everlasting Gaze with Perfect Perpetuation. All this does is reduce the cooldown from 20 seconds down to 16 seconds. While that is a benefit, I recommend, unless you're really a fan of rifles and you're speccing into them for some reason, I would just put regular Perpetuation on an automatic weapon that I enjoy and run that route. But again, totally up to you. But Perpetuation, top tier perk for any status effect build. Now that gets us into the 2 specific skill damage buffs that we can get. The lesser one, but safer, is Spike. So Spike is the safer perk, and upon getting a headshot, will net us 20% skill damage buff for 15 seconds. Now, the good thing about this is if you're running glass cannon, so you're taking additional damage, or for any reason you're just in a spot where you need to stay hunkered down, every 15 seconds you pop out, you proc the perk, you go right back into cover. So A lot safer if you're a newer player or you're playing with glass cannon. Now you can get perfect spike, which will net you a 25% damage bonus for those 15 seconds. This can be found on both the Surge rifle or the Maximum 9 hand cannon that I think is with the Technician specialization. So if you're running Technician, I believe you have access to that as well if you want to run that sidearm. As far as the number one damage dealing perk I recommend for a skill build, notwithstanding exotics, we're going to have to go with In Sync. So In Sync, hitting an enemy grants 15% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with a skill grants 15% weapon damage for 5 seconds. And damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. This means with the majority of our skill builds, we're going to be netting ourselves not only 30% skill damage the majority of the time, but 30% weapon damage. And that's where this perk really shines over the others. Yes, you have to be a bit more active, but it rewards you. You have to hit them with your weapons, but your weapon damage is buffed because of your skills. You have to hit them with your skills, which is buffed because of your weapon. So this really feeds hand in hand. Now, there are two perfect versions of this, two name versions. So the test subject is the name version of the PDR, and while this is a great weapon, and this gives 20% damage for the skills hitting or our weapons hitting, and netting us 40% weapon and skill damage overall, I don't really like the PDR because it does not take the Link laser pointer, which also allows us to pulse targets simply by aiming at them. It's not a deal breaker. There are times where I'll use it, but generally, instead of using, because it's an assault rifle, instead of using the test subject, I will simply use the capacitor. Now there's also the Harmony, which is the named rifle with perfectly in sync. This will get you that 40% total bonus. Also, much like Spike, you can use this from a distance since it's a rifle, proc it every 5 seconds and go that route. Just to compare these two, you got Spike, which takes one headshot every 15 seconds, nets you 20% damage bonus. Or you got In Sync or Perfect In Sync, which every 5 seconds you can shoot an enemy, and that will maintain either a 30 or 40% damage bonus. That's to both your weapons and your skill damage. Depending on the activity you're doing, your play style, chest talents you're running, and even backpack talents. If you're running combined arms, you may need to be up and shooting guys more often, so you'd be more inclined to use In Sync. If you're using tech support, you don't need to worry about proccing things more often. Maybe you're okay with a lesser damage bonus of Spike. Totally up to you. That being said, we got to talk about the Capacitor. The Capacitor is by far the best weapon for any skill damage build, as it is an incredibly powerful weapon. Although we're talking about talents and not the weapons themselves, I just want to note, so the Capacitor, you have the ability to get 12% damage to armor and 10% damage to targets out of cover on this weapon, despite it being an auto rifle. And let's talk about its perk real quick. So Capacitance. Shooting enemies builds up stacks to a cap of 40. Each stack grants 1.5% skill damage. After 5 seconds, stacks decay 1 per second. So you could stack this up to 60% skill damage, and after 5 seconds, every second you lose 1 stack. So you only lose 1.5% damage per second until you hit another enemy, which not only stops the decay, but adds 1 more stack on and allows you time to build it back up. On top of that, much like In Sync that adds weapon damage, for each utility skill tier that we have, we gain 7.5% weapon damage. So in my particular case, most of my builds, I'm either running 5 or 6 utility skill tiers, which means I'm either at 37.5 or 45% weapon damage just by running this, on top of the weapon damage from the capacitor itself and that damage to armor and damage to targets out of cover. So this by far is the most powerful weapon you can use to buff skill damage, which also is the most powerful way to buff your weapon damage as a skill build character. And just overall, it lends itself to interactive gameplay. But Once you ramp up those stacks, you can back off a little bit. Every 10 seconds or so, pop out, get 5 shots or so. Bam, you're right back up to your 40 stacks and rocking and rolling. So, Capacitor really is, in my mind, my favorite exotic weapon in the entire game. Alright, so that wraps it up for weapon talents. If you guys think I missed any, leave a comment down below as to what I missed. If you disagree with anything I said, please leave a comment down below letting us know why. Alright, moving on. Alright, ladies and gents and agents of all ages. So, moving on to the chest talents. First thing to knock out, there are no exotic chest piece that actually lend themselves to skill builds. All of them are based on either weapon damage builds or the tardigrade, which is built for survivability, team survivability, and armor-based builds. So that being said, let's get into the talents. Alright, so the first talent that I'm going to mention is Empathic Resolve. This is situational. This is to a healer. Every time you heal your teammates, they will get a damage buff based upon your skill tier. So repairing an ally increases their total weapon and skill damage by 3 to 15%. Any sort of dedicated healer build is going to be in either skill tier 5 or most likely skill tier 6. So expect to be getting between 13 to 15% weapon and skill damage if you're in the team. And if you are the healer yourself, expect to be getting 6 or 7% bonus weapon and skill damage yourself. The one spot that I use and I really like Empathic Resolve is in my full healer build using future initiatives. So when the team has full armor, they're doing amplified damage bonus. As soon as they take damage, they get healed by me, so they go back up to that full damage bonus. But that healing also adds the Empathic Resolve bonus. So it's possible that these guys are double dipping with both the full armor bonus and the healing bonus at the same time. So I do like that, and if simply they're not at full armor, but you have healed them a bit, they're still going to be getting that bonus, even though they're not getting the future initiative bonus that I would be lending to the team. The one talent that I want to mention before getting into any of the rest of these talents that's just crap, in my opinion, is Tag Team. There was a time when Tag Team was much better than it is, but you first of all, you got to mark a target with the skill, then you got to shoot it, then you go through this whole thing to get a 6-second cooldown, 6 seconds knocked off your skills, but every time you do that, it has a 4-second cooldown, and then you have to go through it again. So I just, overall, I think it's a waste of a talent. I think you're much better off using anything but Tag Team. Alright, next is a very interesting skill, Explosive Delivery. So Explosive Delivery, when you throw a skill 1.5 seconds after landing, it creates an explosion damaging enemies within 5 meters. And this damage will scale with our skill tier, dealing 25 to 100% damage of our concussive grenade. Since I would only be using this with a skill build at skill tier 6, we're going to be doing 100% of that grenade damage with every explosion. Now, this unfortunately only goes off the one time after deploying it. So, the standard Explosive Delivery, I do not believe it's a good skill. I will not recommend using it. However, if any of you guys are familiar with my channel and you've seen it, there is the Perfectly Explosive Delivery. Now, what really not only makes viable Explosive Delivery, but kind of breaks certain skills is the name chest piece, the Combustor, which is Combusted, gives us perfectly Explosive Delivery, and then it still reads the same. Whenever you throw a skill 1.5 seconds after landing, it creates an explosion damaging enemies. Same scalar, but afterwards, explosions will occur every 5 seconds. Well, that's a game changer, right? That changes from me tossing out a skill, it explodes once, okay, to keeping enemies. It's area denial. And the cool thing is, and I will hopefully have linked the video right up here, there's how you can add Explosive Delivery to almost any other deployable skill. The coolest part about it, you don't even have to be wearing the chest piece when you toss out your skills. You don't have to continue wearing the chest piece. If you use the trick at the end of that video, all you do is toss out your skills in the right order. You place everything the right way. while your skills are out and doing whatever they do, you go into the menu, swap the combustor, swap out of the menu, swap back into the menu, put on whatever chest piece you want to be using, boom. Your skills will get the perfect explosive delivery. Now, is that game breaking? By no means. Is it fun? Absolutely. So, while even the combustor explosive, perfectly explosive delivery is not a top tier perk, I do think it's good. I do think it's fun. I'm absolutely stoked it's in the game. Okay, let's move on to more viable and more usable talents now. Now, we have Overwatch, and simply staying in cover for 10 seconds will net you and your team 12% weapon and skill damage, and it will persist if you do a cover-to-cover move. In fact, if you get out of cover and you take cover within approximately a second window, you can actually get out of cover, retake it again. So if you get hit with, say, a grenade explosion or a drone that knocks you out of cover and you take cover quickly enough, you will keep that bonus. You don't have to ramp it back up. There's also the Ferocious Calm, which is the Fenris chest piece, which gives you the perfect version, which just reduces the cooldown from, or the time you need it in cover from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. Now a little bit higher up and a good perk is Spotter. So Spotter, any enemy that's pulsed, you will do amplified damage to them. It's a 15% amplified damage bonus for your weapons and your skills. If you use the perfect version of this, that will bump it up to a 1.2 multiplier, 20% multiplier added on. So the one thing I like about Spotter is you don't have to run a pulse to get it. As long as you're running a technician, you can get access to the link laser pointer and use that. So basically anything you're aiming at will become pulsed, thus you're doing that amplified damage to it. Also, the pulse from the link laser pointer only lasts for about 15 seconds or so, so you will have to repulse enemies periodically. Alright, next, top tier perk, Kinetic Momentum. And this is a great perk because it works well for both skill builds as well as repair skill builds. So Kinetic Momentum reads, when in combat, each skill generates a stack while active or not on cooldown. Stacks increase your total skill damage by 1% and the total skill repair by 2%, up to 15 stacks per skill. The stacks are lost when on cooldown. So that means each of the two skills can stack up to 15 stacks, so that's 30 stacks total. That can net us 30% skill damage and up to 60% repair skill. And if you're using, say, the turret and, say, the hive or something like that, that means you can get 30% skill damage for your turret and that 60% repair skill for your hive. The other cool thing is that you don't have the damage compromise of, say, Glass Cannon, where you take all that extra damage. And at 30 stacks, it is almost as much skill damage as Glass Cannon. Of course, Glass Cannon affects all damage, so we'll get into that in a second. The other thing is that when you lose one of your skills, when they go on to cooldown, you'll lose half of your bonus right there, so down to 15% skill damage, 30% healing. And if both skills are down or on cooldown, you of course won't get any bonus from this at all. Now, before moving on to the God tier, we want to talk about another top tier, and often overlooked talent, Skilled. So upon a skill kill, you have a 25% chance to refresh your skills. Now, the cool thing is, if you have both your skills out and you get a kill, it will proc and it will remain until you break down your skills. And then I will simply blow up both of my skills at the same time, and if you blow up both your skills at the same time, it will give you both your skills back. So that's really great for a lot of endgame content. That's how I make sure that I don't have skills down almost ever. And to be just a bit more efficient, I like it whenever I can use the Caesar's Guard, because that will net me the perfectly skilled, which gives me the 30% chance. The only downside is your skills have to get the kill. So if the skills do 99% of the work and my bullet or a barrel blowing up or something that's not the skill gets the kill, it does not have, it has a 0% chance to reset. I really do like Skilled, and it finds its way into a lot of my endgame builds. That being said, the top tier, God tier talent, of course, to nobody's surprise, Glass Cannon. Glass Cannon amplifies all damage you do by 25%. at the significant cost of you taking 50% bonus damage from every source. The good news is with Glass Cannon is your weapons do that bonus damage all the time. There's no cooldown. There's no time they're not going to take that bonus damage. Every bit of weapon damage you do is going to be amplified. Every bit of skill damage you do is going to be amplified. Every bit of status effect damage you do is going to be amplified, up into including blowing up barrels on guys. So they will take that much additional damage if you're the person that blew up the barrel. Now, let us note there is the Providence Sacrifice chest piece that gives us 30% amplified damage at that 60% incoming damage boost. Now, while that seems like it would be great, why don't we go with it? Because Providence doesn't give us any bonuses to skill builds. So you will, in almost every situation, lose out on damage by using the Providence. Not only that, but you'll be taking 10% additional amplified damage while using the Sacrifice chest piece. So stay away from the Sacrifice. The Sacrifice is no bueno in anything skill build related. Alright, agents, now we're going to get into the backpacks. And the backpacks are where I think we have the most variation. First, I'm going to get off with situational and indirectly related talents that you can use. So the first one would be Companion. If you're near your skill, you get a weapon damage bonus. That's cool, but we're focusing on skills, not weapon damage, so just wanted to bring that up. Also note there's the Henry chest piece, which will give you Perfect Companion, which is 20% weapon damage, and that's on the chest piece. So you can run Companion on the Perfect Companion on the chest and Companion on the backpack and actually net yourself 35% weapon damage just hanging out near your skills. Food for thought, but not really what we're getting at in this video. Now, a talent that is usable, Opportunistic. Enemies you hit with shotguns or marksman rifles amplifies the damage that they take from all sources for 5 seconds. This is actually a viable perk as it amplifies damage for everybody in your team and means all your skills will do that amplified damage. Much like in Sync, which has a 5-second window, you have to keep popping out. If you're using something like, say, the Mop, which I do frequently, this may be a totally legitimate perk to use. However, some of the other perks that we're going to have are easier to proc and ultimately do a little bit more damage when everything else is stacked up. But Opportunistic, totally legitimate perk. Alright, now we're going to talk about 2 situational talents that are very strong. The first one is Creeping Death. Now, much like Perpetuation, this is oriented solely towards the status effect build. Creeping Death reads, when you apply a status effect, it also applies to all enemies within 8 meters of your target with a 15-second cooldown. The perfect version has an even larger radius than this, and this is great for status effect builds because it means when you have a single target status effect, like say you're using your burn sticky bomb, you pop one dude, everybody catches on fire. They're all burning. You don't have to blow it up right away. You can let it burn down, let it burn out, then boom, blow it up a second time. So you can get a lot of yardage out of this. Also, if you're using, say, the Eclipse Protocol, where you're counting on one guy to die with status effects to spread those status effects around to everybody else, this can help because if you hit the whole group of enemies, all you have to do is get the weakest enemy to die, and then it will spread all those status effects around. So Creeping Death, top tier perk for a status effect build. And the one I would choose over Galvanized in most situations. Now the other situational perk is for healers, and that is Safeguard. Now Safeguard is an extremely powerful perk. While at full armor, increases total repair skill by 100%. That is a huge amount of healing. The main reason why I don't like Safeguard is because it means I have to remain at full armor all the time. And for a lot of endgame content, I like to be involved, I like to be near my teammates, and because I use the Future Initiative gear set a lot, I heal people around me, which means I need to be up in the mix. And so for most gameplay, I tend to use the Future Initiative backpack because it kicks up that healing from 60% to 120% to everybody around me, and that tends to be a better buff because I don't have to be at 100% health. And as I've talked about previously, I'm healing guys, so I'm giving them health or I'm giving them weapon damage and skill damage bonus with Empathic Resolve, and then when they're full health, they're getting that damage bonus from future initiative. So Safeguard really is not necessary, but it is a powerful perk for healers, especially if you're a backline healer. Alright, so that being said, let's get into what I think is not a very good perk for damage skill builds, and that is Calculated. So Calculated, kills from cover reduce skill cooldowns by 10%. It's not bad, but I would much rather have a damage talent of some sort, and while this is better than Skilled in the fact that Skilled necessitates a skill kill to try to proc it and reset it, that's a full reset from a skill kill. This Calculated kills, as long as we're in cover, any kill, whether from our weapon, from our skills, or from a barrel that we blew up and caused the enemy to die, will reduce that cooldown. The other caveat is you have to be in cover for it to be effective. So, it's too situational for me. It's not enough bang for the buck. But if you don't have one of these better skill talents, then Calculated can be alright. Now, we have a good talent, Shock and Awe. Now, the thing about Shock and Awe is it does have some caveats where you have to be applying a status effect. So you have to be running some sort of status effect variation of the build, or run the Scorpio. But applying a status effect to an enemy increases total skill damage and repair by 20% for 20 seconds. So, again, if you're using, say, the Scorpio, you don't have to have anything else. You just pop guys. And the cool thing about running, say, that Scorpio combo is if you get the full stacks there, they're taking 20% amplified damage from all sources, and your skills are doing 20% additional damage on top of it. So, that's the one synergy I really like with Shock and Awe is if you want to run the Scorpio. So, Shock and Awe, top tier perk if you don't have the following options available to you. These next two options are essentially the same damage bonus, 25% skill damage. Now, we have tech support, which when you get a skill kill, and again, much like skilled, you're going to need to get a skill kill. But when you get that skill kill, it increases your total skill damage by 25% for 25 seconds. And this is one of those stealth buffs. It used to be only 20 seconds, and recently looking over, they've now buffed it up to 25 seconds. So, this is the safer of the two 25% damage buffs you can get, because your skills get the kill, you don't have to worry about it, so you don't have to be up and out of cover, and then it lasts for 25 seconds. Now, what if you're fighting some beefier enemies? You need to be able to keep that damage up more consistently without having to rely on kills. That's where you got Combined Arms. And Combined Arms, shooting an enemy increases total skill damage by 25% for 3 seconds. This is one of the shortest buffs in the game, but all you have to do is hit the enemy, and it's an easy way to maintain a 25% skill damage bonus ad infinitum. You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as you can shoot something, you can keep Combined Arms proc. And this doesn't need to be the enemy. This can be a proxy. This can be a shield. This can be a drone. Anything that it can be a barrel. Anything that you can shoot. And so either of these two, either Combined Arms or tech support, are both the top tier end game pieces that I would recommend as far as damage from a high-end backpack. The only thing more powerful than this is the Force Multiplier Haunting You name backpack, which comes with perfect Combined Arms. This is a 30% skill damage bonus for 3 seconds and is the largest buff you can get. So, what does that mean? That means if we are to combine perfect Combined Arms along with Glass Cannon, along with the Capacitor, get all those buffs active at the same time, max those out, that is going to be the most damage that we're going to be able to put out at any one time. And the one thing you can do to buff that up is have another weapon you could proc Overcharge, or maybe BTSU Gloves to proc your own Supercharge, Supercharge. But yeah, so that being said, there are a few backpacks we should consider. You got the NinjaBike backpack, which gives you all 3 weapon, armor, and skill tier. weapon core, armor core skill tier, but you don't have the chance to get the 10% skill damage on it. So you actually lose out on a little bit of damage that you would get natively. And the Talent Resourceful lets us double up on some brand set perks. So maybe you can make that up in some other places, but it does not give us a damage talent. Now there's the Acostas. Acostas allows us to chuck a free grenade. I don't even think we need to kill. We just chuck in the grenade. Gives us the overcharge for 15 seconds. So this is a way to overcharge. It does have the Acosta is actually cool because it gives you the 10% skill damage, 10% status effects. Acostas gives us a bunch of stuff. So it's kind of cool, but it just falls behind in damage, and it means you're having to throw this grenade every minute, and just not really a true contender. Which moves us into the last of the exotic backpacks, the Memento. Memento can actually be extremely powerful if you can get to the 30 stacks of the Kill Confirm trophies, which will net you 30% skill damage on top of 30% weapon damage, and the armor regen that it'll give you. And then the short-term buff on top of that will net you up to 30% additional skill damage on top of the weapon damage. And then I think it's bonus armor that you get for picking up the short-term armor things. But yeah, so the Memento can be really powerful. You just got to stack it up more for solo gameplay. And again, you do miss out on a specific damage talent on the backpack. You also miss out on being able to have the 10% skill damage from the minor attribute. Alright guys, I know it's been a long video. We're going to get into the last few things. There's only a couple things left. And these are 4 standalone exotics that should be taken into consideration if you're doing a skill build or a status effect build. That being said, the first one is the Vile Mask. The Vile Mask will give us the Toxic Delivery talent, which status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. Total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussive grenade damage and increases by your status effect attributes. So basically, much like the Combustor, explosive delivery, it's based on the concussive grenade damage. Just buff your explosive damage up as much as you can, apply a status effect, and then add on whatever status effect bonuses you happen to have, and boom. It's a really, really kind of cool, but it has to be built the right way. You can't just throw it on a build and have this be effective. Now, another solid skill build exotic is the BTSU gloves. Again, really niche. You have to be running a hive to really get the benefits out of it, and it's really trying to push you to run the Restorer hive, as it gives you skill haste, repair skill on it. But it will work with any version of the hive. Transfer its overclock talent. It grants 15% hive skill haste per skill tier. So that means the skill tier 6, like most of you will be if you're running with this build, that's going to be 90% bonus skill haste on top of everything else. So you'll get your hive charges back extremely quick. Now the other side of it, and the thing that really makes it potent, detonating of hive refreshes your skill cooldowns and grants overcharge for 15 seconds. If it's skill tier 6, which most of us will be, this effect also applies to all allies. So that means your allies, your entire team can be at skill tier 0, and for 15 seconds, they will not even be at skill tier 6. They will be fully overcharged for that 15 seconds. So it basically treats everybody as if they are a full skill build character, minus any skill damage from the minor attributes. There is a 2-minute cooldown every time you fire off this specific overcharge. So keep that in mind. Now, finishing it off, we have 2 holsters to mention. The first one is the Imperial Dynasty. Very niche. At one time was actually pretty effective with the Eclipse Protocol build. However, it has fallen off quite a bit in lieu of the Vile Mask. That's the Imperial Dynasty, and it has the Dragon's Glare. While in combat, applies burn to the enemy closest to you within 20 meters. Cooldown 35 seconds. So, 2 problems with this and why it's fallen out. There's 2 buffs that they would need to make. I think if you made either one of these buffs by itself, you would not see gameplay with the Imperial Dynasty. But if both of these were made, I think people would actually incorporate them. Number 1, while in combat, applies burn to all enemies within 20 meters. Not the closest enemy, all enemies within 20 meters. The burn is very weak. We've done testing on it. This does not compare to any burn from any other sources. Even when you're speccing into burn from every source that you have possible and available, it's still a weak burn. I mean, given they're not doing anything because they're burning, but still, the burn itself does no damage. Second of all, cooldown 35 seconds, drop that down to 20 seconds. Make it the same duration, the same cooldown as Perpetuation. Make those two work in tandem, and then you may actually get some people using the Imperial Dynasty. Alright, now, the last and final thing to mention, and a very powerful exotic holster, the Waveform. So the Waveform gives us skill damage as a minor attribute, but more importantly, the talent, alternating current. Generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second, capping to 10 stacks. After 10 seconds at the cap, the stacks start to transfer to your other skill. The process then repeats ad infinitum. So what that means is one of your skills will start stacking up to 30% damage, and then it'll start swapping that over to the other side. So in the middle there, at equilibrium, both skills will have 15% skill damage, and then the other skill will continue on until it has 30% skill damage, the other skill has none, and then it will oscillate back and forth. What this means is an overall damage bonus of 15%. So, in a lot of cases, if you're not running any other exotic, and you're running a skill build, just tossing the Waveform in there will do nothing but add on approximately 5%. Alright, agents, so I know this video was super long. Hopefully I will have the presence of mind to have done timestamps down below, but I really wanted to go through the year 6 skill talent and make sure we kind of see where everything's at and have an idea of what works, what doesn't, and in a lot of cases, things that work if used in conjunction with other talents, other weapons, other exotics, or just in very specific builds. So hopefully you guys learned something new, got some solid info out of this. If so, I hope you guys will consider smashing that like button for me. Hopefully by now, if you haven't already, hopefully I've earned your subscription. Best thing you can do to help my channel is to share my videos. And let me know, if I missed anything or anything else you guys want to see in the future. Leave a comment down below. Alright, just thank you so much for hanging in there to the end of this. Y'all be as safe as you need to be out there, and I will catch you all in the dark zone. Peace out, everybody.
Home to flowing water, as evidenced by these images. At one point, more than 3.8 billion years ago, for one-third of the Martian surface, ocean, Martian exploratory craft have sent more recent water as well, ranging from salty and dried river systems, what appear to be ancient present on the surface of Mars that could only have been formed in a liquid water environment. Today, water can be found on Mars largely as ice at the Martian North Pole, although small quantities exist as water vapor in the thin Martian atmosphere, or as brine in the Martian soil.
There's a drone! You're going down!
Interference detected.
Agent, have Isaac scan the parts. Setting a recovery team. Link up with them and you'll be done there.
Components identified. Suggested use. Missile construction.
They must be using a casing from the museum's collection. If they can rig it with a warhead and some means of propulsion, they wouldn't need a guidance system to hit the White House or a settlement.
Kinda goes without saying, but if you see any missiles lying around, make sure they can never, ever be used.
Database hatch indicates designated LMR-90.
That would be the missile, then. Please neutralize that fucking thing by any means necessary.
Damn it. Salvage crew just ran into those reinforcements. They need backup.
Munitions factory is out of action and they lost a big stockpile of ordnance. Throw in the fact that the settlements can scavenge those workbenches and tools, and I'd say it's been a pretty good day.
Sam! Remember, take your time. That was the last one. Good work, everyone. You did good.